and welcome to the podcast of Loughborough University's Institute of Advanced Studies, a podcast where our international fellows discuss the most pressing issues of today that we're all facing and share their exciting research ideas. We hope you enjoyed today's talk. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to the Institute of Advanced Studies. Welcome to those of you in the room, to the International House, and welcome to our Open Program Fellow, Dr. Anshuman Sharma, who is joining us today. As always, we have exciting things happening in the International House. This is the place where we discuss the most, the current context, the current topics, the most interesting topics, and that's where I think the debate kind of flows mostly. So we're really delighted to have you today, and we're looking forward to your presentation. A couple of housekeeping rules. For those of you who are joining us online, please post the questions in the Q&A section. We are monitoring everything, and there will be time for Q&A. For those of you in the room, questions after the talk, and also there will be coffee cake afterwards, so there will be time for discussion as well. Sorry, no virtual cake, that would be amazing. One day technology will get us there. So without any further ado, I would like for Yasser Ali, who is hosting our fellow to introduce Anshuman.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you to the Institute of Advanced Studies for hosting Anshuman, who is a great mentor to me as well as a colleague, and our relationship goes 9 years back when I joined the research group where Anshuman was 6 months senior to me. We did PhD with the same supervisor under the same project. After that, the friendship goes on to the family friendships, and after 5 years, I'm seeing Anshuman face to face. Last time I saw him in Sydney. So Anshuman is a civil engineer, went on to do a master's in transport and then PhD in transport with a specific focus on intelligent transportation systems and microscopic modeling. He is currently an assistant professor in IIT BHU, which is one of the very high-ranked university, and his research interests are in microscopic modeling, intelligent transportation systems, as well as data analytics and econometric modeling. So I'll leave it to Anshuman. Welcome once again, Anshuman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank the IES and Loughborough University for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank Yasser, without whom this wouldn't have been possible. It's a nice, beautiful campus. Once the sun shines, I think it's elegant. To start with, my name is Dr. Anshuman Sharma. I have one slide about me as well. The topic is role of human factors in microscopic traffic flow models. I'll give you some background about what are these models and other things. I'm going to talk about the role of driver in connected vehicles, the role of driver in traditional vehicles, and then some way forward. I just reverse the role of traditional vehicles, connected vehicles. First, I'm going to talk about traditional vehicles, then I'll move to connected ones. So I'm an assistant professor in transportation engineering section in the Department of Civil Engineering at IIT BHU. A bit of history about the institute. It was established in the year 1919. We just celebrated 100 years, that is in 2019. We have engineering sections, around 11 engineering departments from civil engineering, mechanical, computer science, and others. Then we have sciences as well, physics, chemistry, and mathematics. We have some specific schools, let's say, for example, school on biomedical, and we have humanities as well. The institute hosts around 6,500 to 700 undergrad students, around 1,500 doctoral students, and around 1,000 postgraduate students. One or two lines on the city Varanasi. It is one of the oldest living cities, not only in India, but in the world. The history goes back to 11th century BC. It is also called as the spiritual capital of India. And the city is by the side of the river Ganga. Okay, so my research areas, it is now integrated within intelligent transportation systems, connected vehicles, automated vehicles, driver assistance systems, how they impact drivers. And then there's an integration with traffic flow theory, how we can model the traffic. And then an important part is human factors, and that's where this presentation is on. So I'll start with the importance of driver in a traditional vehicle. And before I do that, let me just give you a quick background on what are these microscopic models. So basically, traffic flow models we can divide majorly into two parts: macroscopic and microscopic. When it comes to macroscopic, we are looking into the aggregate nature of the traffic stream. Let's say a bird's eye view of the traffic stream. When it comes to the microscopic aspects, it is that when we are looking at the traffic from the individual driver's perspective, how our driver is making decisions. Okay, so the microscopic traffic flow models are the models that describes how a driver decides to go around the traffic stream. Okay, now traditional vehicle mean a vehicle with no information about surrounding traffic information. Okay, it's just a normal vehicle we are driving. We do not have any information about the surrounding traffic. We are making all the decisions based on our driving experience. This is basically one of my latest papers, which was published in this year only. Uh, so in this paper, actually, so when we talk about microscopic models, majorly all the models are for cars, how a car driver drives in a traffic stream. But we do not have only cars, we have buses, we have motorbikes and others. So we thought about, okay, how can we use the same model to describe the bus driver behavior? And if we can't, then what modifications are required so that we can use the models to describe the bus driver behavior? Now, if you compare car and bus, obviously we can see there are physical differences of length, breadth, and height, right? There are operational differences as well. The acceleration characteristic is different simply because there's low horsepower to weight ratio. Also, because of the size, the maneuverability is less, right? When it comes to heterogeneous situations or disordered situation back in India, we have a very mix of heterogeneous traffic. There's a lot of lateral movement. But buses, because of their size, they will prefer to stop or to slow down rather than moving literally because it can be a safety critical situation. So there are differences in physical and operational characteristics. But importantly, there are also differences when it comes to human factors. For example, whenever we are driving, right, we are looking at, okay, what is the distance ahead? Okay, based on that, we will accelerate or decelerate, right? But when you're driving a car, your line of sight is a bit parallel, right? Line of sight is parallel to whatever vehicle which is ahead. When you consider this from the perspective of the bus driver, he's looking at the vehicle at some angle, right? So whatever distance estimation or whatever speed estimation the driver is doing while making decisions, they will be different from what a car driver is doing, simply because of the vantage point, the high vantage point that the driver has. That's one. Other thing is, so whenever we drive, it is not only that we consider the vehicle ahead. Whenever we are making some decisions, we are also observing, let's say, second leader or the third leader. For example, there is a speed breaker. Sometimes we observe the third leader, okay, he or she is decelerating, and accordingly we become proactive. This is something called as multi-vehicle anticipation. So not only we are looking at the leader ahead, we are looking at multiple leaders. Now, if you're sitting in a car, you might see only one vehicle ahead. If there's a bus, you might not see other vehicles. But when it comes to a bus driver, and if there are only cars ahead, bus driver might see a number of vehicles, right? So these human factors, which is like stimuli perception or multi-vehicle anticipation, they are different when it comes to a car driver than a bus driver. Okay, so theoretically speaking, it will be difficult for us to choose the same model which we have developed for car drivers and then implement it directly to mimic the bus drivers. Right? And that's what we'll see in the slides later. So to incorporate the multi-vehicle anticipation, what I have done is, first of all, I have to select what vehicles a driver could see, right? Because the number of vehicles a driver could see within some range, then only those vehicles driver will consider to decide whether to accelerate or decelerate. So now depending on the configuration of vehicles ahead, let's say there could be a combination of cars or buses or trucks, I have developed an algorithm that gives an idea how many vehicles a driver could see. Okay, there are limit on the length till what extent a driver could see. In addition to which, if there are some trucks or some cars in between, then accordingly the algorithm will select the vehicles which driver could see. For example, here you can see LV3 might not be visible to the driver, right? So if you consider the models which were developed before, they will take all the vehicles which are ahead and they will take all the vehicles into consideration in their modeling framework. But this is not, I mean, possible, because if a vehicle is there and if a truck is behind that vehicle, the driver might not see that vehicle. So we may not consider all the vehicles which are there. We should only consider vehicles which are visible. And then there is some weight given to all the vehicles which are in the scene, and accordingly the stimuli is taken by the driver. Okay, so that's how I've incorporated the multi-vehicle anticipation. So first, the vehicles which are visible, then giving weight to each of those vehicles. Next is impact of side vehicles. Now, when you the think from the perspective of heterogeneous disordered traffic condition where vehicles can overlap, right? There is no as such lane following. A vehicle can be anywhere. Let's say, for example, the lead vehicle can be within the overlapping zone of subject vehicle, or it can be on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Then whatever stimuli we are considering, they have to be weighted according to the overlap, right? The one which is having the highest overlap, that becomes more riskier. You might collide with it, right? And the one which is on the left-hand side, you might not collide, but you can still get some information from that particular vehicle. So again, whatever stimuli we are considering, or whatever multi-vehicle anticipation we are considering with respect to other vehicles, they have to be again weighted according to the arrangement or the overlap with respect to the subject vehicle. Now comes to the perception errors, or the stimuli perception errors, how they can incorporate these errors. So I have borrowed one theory from the perception studies, which is this angular expansion theory. According to this theory, it says that the distance from the subject to the object are always underestimated by humans, irrespective of whether it's a verbal estimation or non-verbal estimation. Okay, pretty much strict bound on whether it's always underestimated. Okay, so accordingly, I have formulated how the stimuli can be incorporated based on this theory. Then I've also taken modify Stevens' power law, which says that okay, any physical stimulus and its intensity can be given by this relation, where both Q and C are positive constants. And based on that, also I have tried to model the perceived spacing and the perceived relative speeds. And then I have tested both, which one is working fine in our case. Okay. Then considering this and the multi-vehicle anticipation, we have in traffic flow theory, we have a very famous model called intelligent driver model. I have modified the intelligent driver model. I think, yeah, we can still see all. So I've modified the intelligent driver model, where if you focus on the second part here, I'm considering the weights. This is my stimuli, and I'm multiplying this with whether the overlap is there or not. And you can see this P term here, which is taking the perception into account. Okay. So that's the bus driver behavior model, and it will have two parts depending on how I'm considering perception, whether I'm considering angular expansion theory or whether I'm considering modified Stevens power law. Based on that, the equation will change. And then what I did sensitivity analysis to understand whether the parameters that I'm including, are they really contributing to the model or not? That was the first step. And then did model calibration and then validation. Okay, so I have the results now. So when it comes to the calibration errors, or how good the numerical soundness is, how closely it can mimic the driver behavior, what you can see is both the bus driver behavior model. So OIDM means the original model, the car, if I'm using the car model to mimic the behavior. Okay, so no modification for buses. You have BIDMK, which is bus IDM, and K means I'm considering the angular expansion theory. And then you have BIDMLC, where I'm considering the Stevens law. Okay, so what you can observe here is that when it comes to numerical soundness, the bus driver behavior models are performing better than if you are having originally just the car driver behavior model. Then I also looked into the behavioral soundness, which means how closely it can mimic the spacing profiles. So what you can see is you have the observed spacing and you have the simulated spacing using the models. And you can see that the BIDMK, the bus driver behavior model based on the angular expansion theory, this is actually giving me close results as compared to the other models. So again, this is demonstrating that first we have to use a model which is specific to bus drivers, and then the role of human factors. In addition to that, I did the model validation, and that cleared the picture out completely that the bus driver behavior model, which is based on the angular expansion theory and the MVA, was performing much better than the original model or the other model I considered. Not only that, then I tested the model that is able to capture the typical characteristics of traffic or not. So there's something called the stability that we check. We have local stability of the model and the string stability. Local stability means if there are two vehicles, if there's a perturbation, so with time the perturbation will diminishes. That's your local stability. And you have string stability. If you have platoon of vehicles and if there's some perturbation, then the perturbation diminishes as we go down. From the first follower to 20th follower, we can see that the model is able to capture that. In addition to that, we have some macroscopic. So these are typical diagrams of how flow density varies, the typical fundamental relation that we have, and that is also we are able to capture. Yeah, so what I would like to conclude is that, again, considering human factors and not consider the same model for car drivers is much better as compared to if you are using the same model to mimic, let's say, bus driver behavior. Now, moving on to driver in a connected vehicle. Okay, so connected for those who are, may not be aware of connected vehicle. It is a vehicle where we are providing information to the driver. Okay, what is the lead? What might be the distance? What route you have to choose, and all those things. But the decision maker is still the driver. So we are giving the information, but the driver is deciding whether to accelerate or decelerate. Okay. Now, imagine a situation. We are giving a message that pedestrian ahead. Okay. Now it is in the hands of the driver whether the driver would like to decelerate or not. Right. But the best we can do is we can inform the driver. That's it. But it's up to the driver whether he or she wants to comply with the message or not. Right. Hence, so there could be two responses. Whether there could be a response, which means driver is complying with the message, or there won't be a response, which means driver is not complying to the message. Okay. So all the advantages that we are thinking of that, okay, connected vehicle technology will bring all these advantages and all, they are ultimately in the hands of the driver. We can design the best system possible. We can have the fastest algorithms available and applicable to the systems, but ultimately it will be in the hands of the driver whether he or she is complying with your information or not. Okay. So that's so what we did was actually, so first we designed some experiment where we basically the driving simulator experiment where we designed various scenarios to test drivers. Okay, so there were driving conditions, which means a baseline condition where we gave no information to the driver, and there was perfect communication, which means we gave the information to drivers but without any delay or loss. Then there was a delay scenario where we gave the information but there was some delay, and then there was a loss scenario, because this can also happen, right? Just like Wi-Fi can get lost if you're away from the range, right? Similarly, if connected vehicles are there could be a scenario of communication loss that for some amount of time there is no information given to the driver. So we tested these four scenarios. We had both motorway sections as well as the city sections. We have interaction with pedestrians, traffic signals. We had car following, lane changing. So we tried to experiment with all the possible scenarios that we can that a driver can experience during the journey. Okay. This was the route where we had the motorway section, the city area, and then others. We tested the car following scenario. So we tested with the complete trajectories. Okay. We had the high speed and low speed scenarios. Then we have different lane changing scenarios where we gave different messages to driver to whether they will change the lane or not. Then we have the interaction with the pedestrians where we gave message about whether pedestrians approaching or not. We also gave messages regarding the traffic signals, whether the traffic signals, so an advanced information about the traffic signal that is going to switch to red or green. Okay. And then we did all this experiment in a driving simulator. It's a complete car with working controls. It has got 6 degrees of freedom. And we invited participants. Around 80 participants came and drove in these 4 different scenarios. And we recorded the data and then we analyzed it. Okay, just a snapshot of what messages were given to the drivers. Okay, so if you focus on this image here, there was a warning message. Let's say if you are crossing the speed limit sign, a message will pop up, and there were 2 continuous messages. So normally when you drive, you have the information about at what speed you are driving. We were giving some additional information. The additional information was at what speed the lead vehicle is driving. Okay. Also, what is the distance between your vehicle and the vehicle ahead? Okay. I was talking about the perception errors. When you're perceiving the distances, here you have the information. What is the actual distance? Okay. And then even this message was, so you can see a red circle. There was a red circle in the second one as well, if the distance is too low, which was 5 meters. Then we had this lane change information as well. So normally when you change lane, what a driver is actually doing, it is trying to get a rough idea about what are the gaps available to me. Okay, rough idea about the speeds and can I change the lane or not. Here, we are giving that message that, okay, these are the available gaps to you. Okay, now will you change or not? All those things. So we have that message. And then within the city, we have message called, if you can see, I don't know, watch for pedestrians, if a pedestrian is approaching. We also had a message which was, okay, red light in 5 seconds or 3 seconds. So these were the messages which were there in that experiment. Okay, and then we tried to compare the baseline scenario and the perfect communication scenario. And what you can see is that drivers are maintaining large spacings, they are maintaining large time headways, the time to collisions are more, which means that more safety is there. Okay. We also tried to see that, okay, how many times they have exceeded the speed limit, and what you can see is in current environment, the violation is less, whether it's 2-lane motorway, 4-lane motorway, or city. We also looked into when it comes to the yellow light running, where the yellow light running was less in the communication scenario, as well as the time to collisions were better. Okay. So what information do we get from here? What we understand is, okay, fine, information assistance is actually helping drivers. It is making them safer. We are maintaining more distances and all. But what we are missing here is that we have not given any weightage to the compliance. We have not looked into this from the compliance perspective. So what we did further is that we decided, okay, I have not many slides on how we have created this model, but what we have done is that we have borrowed prospect theory, and based on that, we have tried to formulate different compliance levels. Okay, we assumed there could be a high compliance driver. So for example, a message is given to you and you have complied completely. There could be some low compliance drivers. I've given you a message, you might delay your reaction. Okay, I will not comply now, I might comply later. Or there might be some drivers that I'm giving the message. If you're a high compliance driver, you might react directly. You might deslate at that instant. Then there might be some low compliance drivers where you are giving the message, but they are decelerating, but they are not perfectly sure whether the information is that much helpful to them or not. Interestingly, we are thinking about that there could be zero compliance as well. But for those 80 drivers, there was no zero compliance. So everyone complied to the information. The only difference was there was some drivers complied high, some drivers complied low, but there was no one who did not comply. So this is for the Australian drivers. Okay. So what I did was, so in this again, I have some experiments done to see how things will pan out if we have these different categories of drivers in our traffic stream. So what I did was there was a homogeneous situation and heterogeneous situation. Homogeneous means all traditional vehicle drivers, all drivers complying high, or all drivers complying low. So homogeneous situation. Heterogeneous means there is a combination now. There could be a traditional vehicle driver or a high compliance driver. Okay, and there would be low compliance drivers and all those things, right? And there will be a different penetration of these vehicles. So I'm varying the penetration rate from 0 to 100%, 10% high compliance, 20% high compliance, 30% high compliance, like this. Then I also have the platoon policies. So normally when you see the literature, what they do is that you increase the penetration rate and you see the benefits, right? But it is important that how these vehicles are distributed in the traffic stream. Okay, whether the best arrangement could be if I put all the vehicles at the front, whatever negative or whatever deceleration waves they are coming, these vehicles can bear them, and then it will be less for the other vehicles. There could be worse arrangement. I can put all these intelligent vehicles at the end, and then I can see, okay, what is happening. And then there would be a random arrangement of vehicles where these vehicles are arranged differently or randomly in the traffic stream. Okay. So I've tested these two. I've tested both from the traffic flow side, traffic safety side, all those things. Okay, so here's the first thing. If I have all the traditional vehicles, I can see the deceleration waves are coming down to the plateau, okay, right at the end of the plateau. But if I have high compliance drivers, you can see they can bear this deceleration wave, right? And the negative effects do not go down to their plateau. As compared to low compliance drivers, they are somewhere in between. Okay. So again, if the vehicles, the drivers are complying more with the information, you see more benefits. I think there's some timing, automatic timing, which is there. That's why this is happening. Okay. So then I also tested, you can see the best case, worst case, and random case in terms of safety. Okay. So what we can observe here is that I think, shall I just can I just remove the timings for a minute?
Yeah, if you want to.
Just yeah, I mean, don't know why. Maybe slideshow. Okay. Oh, now it is better. Sorry guys for this. Now it will be better, I guess. Yeah, now it will not move. Hopefully. So we have, as I said, we have best case, worst case, and random case. What you can observe here is what I'm talking about is time to collision. When it comes to the best case, time to collision is always better. When it comes to the worst case scenario, you can see even though if I increase the penetration rate of vehicles, connected vehicles specifically, we don't see the benefits much. Unless and until they are more than 50%, and automatically their population is more, you will see the benefits coming on. Random is in between. Similarly, when it comes to the other factor, which is called as deceleration rate, you can see the same thing. Now, this is related to efficiency. If you compare the best case and worst case, in the best case, where I have arranged my vehicles in a certain way or at the front, what you can see is a high flow as compared to the worst case, where I have arranged those vehicles, although their penetration rate is 80%. So they are 80% within traffic stream. But because of the specific arrangement, I'm not seeing their benefits. Okay. So what I conclude from this is that although information assistance enhances the safety, it enhances the efficiency, but it does it more for high compliance driver as compared to the low compliance drivers or no compliance drivers. And the success also relies on how these vehicles are actually distributed in my traffic stream. Okay, so this is one experiment that we did with the. So this is a real world experiment. So previously I was talking about driving simulator experiment. This is a real world experiment where there was a startup called Netradyne, and they had these driver assistance systems, and we employed these driver assistance systems in the buses. So there was no experiment design, nothing. We just wanted to see if we are giving the assistance to drivers, let's say collision warning or the other assistance to drivers, how they are actually reacting to those. Okay. While I'm not allowed to share the results yet, but what we saw was, I mean, the aggregate things, they had a very high number of alerts were recorded, actually. Okay, in the scenario where the assistance was given, so we had two scenarios. Again, a baseline where there was no assistance, but we were recording the alerts. Okay, we were still recording the alerts, but we are not giving them to drivers. And then there was a scenario where the message was given. So when we compared these alerts, silent alerts and the alerts, we found that in the scenario where the message was given, the alert number was very high. So, and the second thing was there was no as such a statistical difference as well, whether it's a baseline situation or when you're giving the messages. And we also found out that after some time, drivers was not even paying attention to whatever alerts we are giving. Okay. So one of the reasons for this is that these devices, so how they work is whenever something is violated, the alert is generated, right? Let's say if the violation is based on the distances, right? If the distance threshold is violated, an alert will be generated, right? Whether distance threshold or time threshold, whatever is the case. Now, this distance threshold might not be suitable for those drivers, right? You have designed your system for one particular, let's say one particular value. Let's say X is the value, but that X value might not work for everyone. It might be good for some drivers, it might not be good for the other drivers, right? This could be the reason. And then there were so many now the bus drivers, they were habitual of driving at low distances in India. I mean, it's so much congested, heterogeneous situation, people are driving very close to each other. But these messages were coming, let's say, at 5 meters or 10 meters, where the drivers are, they can drive actually at, let's say, 2 meters or 3 meter distances. So basically, this is not for them. So what we are doing is actually we are building the algorithms which are driver specific. Okay, so thresholds are now driver specific. So once you drive, it's a machine learning based algorithm. It learns, and then accordingly it modifies the threshold. So according to the driving style, the threshold will be changed. Okay, so you drive, your driving style is there, the threshold will be changed, and now the alerts will be generated based on your driving style. Okay, so the algorithm is ready. Happy to tell you that we have won the Hyundai. There was a challenge called Hyundai Scholarship Challenge. So our students have won that challenge based on this idea. Now we are building the prototype, and then we will again do the study to see, is there a difference? Okay. The way forward that what we are doing is we are trying to collect data. So normally when we work with traffic flow models or traffic, we take only vehicle trajectory data into consideration. But now the time has come that to go one step ahead. I mean, if you want to bring the human factors into consideration, there has to be some driver demographics data, some instruments to use. Let's say if you want to measure driver aggressiveness, some instruments are there, some surveys are there which you can use to record that information. We also have to have some very pinpointed driver level data. Let's say how the driver is braking, how the driver is accelerating. We can also have some eye tracking data where driver is looking at. If we want to build now the systems which are more complex, which understand drivers better, we need all this information together at one platform, and then we can build those models. So we are working on this one. Yeah, that's it from my side. I was thinking it would be 35 to 40 minutes, but I ended in just around 33 minutes. Yeah, but if you are happy to answer questions if you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the podcast of Loughborough University's Institute of Advanced Studies. A quick reminder about how to stay connected. You can find us on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you can also watch the presentations on YouTube. The podcast is available on all the major platforms. Please download, share, and most importantly, subscribe. See you next time.